I got a crested gecko on Wednesday. His name, or her name, I don't know, it's not old enough for me to tell whether my gecko is a male gecko or a female gecko. So I use he and she interchangeably. His or her name is Ketchup, Pumpkin, Flack. And it's Ketchup Pumpkin because I named it Ketchup. My mom does not like the name Ketchup. She likes the name Pumpkin, if you will. So I decided to make that the middle name so that it still is kind of correct for her to call her, him, her. In my heart, it's a boy. What I was doing. Anyway, KP for short. I got a crested gecko because it was going to be a manageable pet for me as a 22-year-old working full-time and not being home a whole lot. He's nocturnal, so when I'm at work, he's asleep. He also doesn't wake up until like 8 or 9 p.m., which means I have time to like work out, eat dinner, and all this stuff and get all his food and stuff ready to go before he even wakes up. He also doesn't take up that much space. As you can see back here, I have 2 tanks right now sitting side by side. I don't have 2 geckos, I just have 1. He's living in here right now. As he gets more comfortable with me and the environment, I will move him into the bigger one, and this will be his forever home. Right now, he's in a 5.5 gallon tank, and I'll be moving him to a 10. I wish I would have just gotten the 10, but I bought the 5.5 gallon first because I didn't have a 10 at Petco, but they had a 10 gallon at Pet Supplies Plus, but I didn't know that when I bought the 5.5. So I have a 5.5 gallon tank and a 10 gallon tank. Hey, maybe I'll do a giveaway if someone wants a 5.5 gallon tank for no reason. I'm your girl. Anyway, I'm gonna be going over, I kind of already went over why I got Ketchup versus another pet, but I'll also be going over how expensive it is to set up a crested gecko enclosure and have that as a pet and maintain it. And then there will be some vloggy bits at the end, just me going to get him and like the first couple of days that we've been together and how that's been going. So yeah, if you want to know about crested geckos or you like them, stick around. I will not be holding him while I'm talking because he is a baby, so he does like to jump. But it's also like 6 p.m. right now, so he's probably not in the mood for me to hold him. I also have not been building up on my handling time yet because I've only had him for 2 days and I want him to be able to chill out and get comfortable before I'm just like willy-nilly whipping him out of the cage. So I held him for like 2 minutes yesterday and then I put him back and that was it. So I'll probably hold him for like a couple of minutes tonight, and I know you're not really supposed to, but he came from a place where he was handled a lot. So I'm like, you're kind of used to it. Whatever. I'm not trying to stress him out, and I can kind of tell when he gets stressed out, so I'm like, I'll leave you alone, take you out for a couple minutes, put you back. But for right now, I will not be holding him, but there will be adequate gecko footage in this video. I got Ketchup because he wasn't going to take up a lot of space, and he's pretty easy to care for. I literally have to feed him once a day or every other day, depending on how dry the food gets. And then I have to mist the cage twice because the cage is supposed to be maintained between 65 and 75 degrees and have a humidity between 50% and 80%, which honestly is due for another spraying right now, but I'm gonna wait for a minute. And then I can pretty much leave the water alone because he's little. He's literally the size of my finger. That's pretty much all the care that he requires for right now. As of right now, he is still a baby, I'm pretty sure. It's only 7 grams, and I won't be able to tell the gender definitively until probably closer to 15 to 20 grams. So as of right now, Ketchup is genderless. I refer to Ketchup as he, she, it, they. Any pronoun I choose is what I refer to Ketchup as, and sometimes it really do be like that. But I don't think Ketchup minds. Right now, baby is sleeping in the leaves. Ideally, crested geckos are kept in a 10-gallon tank. As I said before, Ketchup's in a 5.5 gallon tank just so that he can kind of acclimate to my new environment that is for him. Here's the timeline. On Wednesday night at 10 p.m. I went and picked him up. I had already bought the 5-gallon tank and set it up, but literally the day of, I went and bought a 10-gallon tank because they were on sale at Pet Supplies Plus. So I have that for him to move into either this weekend or maybe not this weekend, but like next week sometime. So I'm just trying to let him get used to the temperature of my apartment and the humidity in the cage before I go ahead and just move him over to this bigger space. Another reason I started him in there is because he was housed with a sibling that he was with for over a year, and so he's probably feeling pretty weird about being alone now. So a smaller space I figured would be easier for him to get used to because he's not being housed with another gecko. I also never thought I would have a reptile as a first pet, but here we are, and I love him. He's my phone background, so what can I say? Anyway, crested geckos are actually very affordable animals, which I was kind of surprised about because they seem kind of exotic. But I wrote down everything that I bought and paid for and how much it was. So the total to get everything for ketchup, including ketchup, was $209.61. It doesn't have to be that expensive, but for me personally, just that was what it was. But I'll break it down for you so that you know everything that I bought and how much it was individually. Ketchup was actually $30, which I mean is pretty cheap for a gecko, especially with his coloring. Geckos can be pretty cheap, but they can also be very expensive depending on what you want it to look like. Some people are very particular about the coloring and striping and spotting of their geckos. I, on the other hand, was like, just give me one. I just want one that is itself. I don't really care. I'm not super into being particular about it or being a gecko snob, if you will. I was just wanting a pet that I could love, and that was Ketchup, and he is actually a really pretty coloring, in my opinion. I'm sure some people are like, oh, something's not right about him, and I'm like, no, he's perfect, actually. Thank you, though. I act like I know what I'm talking about, but I've literally had him for 2 days, but I watched so many videos to figure out like what I needed to do before I bought him, because I was like, I don't want to do anything wrong. Also, disclaimer, if you know something that I don't know, please tell me in the comments, because I want to be the best gecko mom that I possibly can, and if I'm doing something wrong, then I'm doing a disservice to him. So don't come for me in a mean way, but if you have advice, please tell me. I want to know. So what do you need for a gecko? As of right now, I have a 5.5 gallon tank and a 10 gallon tank. I think they can live in 20 gallon long tanks. They can also live in 10 gallon tanks just fine. If you get an Exoterra tank, which is like $100, and I aspire to have one, but I probably won't because they're over $100, they're about 10 gallons, and they're about the size of this one. Their dimensions are just a little bit different. This is a 12 by 10 by 20, whereas Exoterra, the smaller tanks, the ones that you can get for specifically for crested geckos, are 12 by 12 by 18. So the dimensions on that one are the same as this, they're just a little bit different. So this tank and the lid were $23.98, and then the tank clamps to keep the door on were $7. So for that tank I spent almost $30, and for this one it was $25.66 for this and the door, which is not common for Zilla tanks. This tank is usually $40. Moving on to tank decorations, I bought I spent $46.85 on tank decorations, and I bought foliage and hammocks and tubes, and yeah, that's really what I bought. And vines. I have all of that going on in here, and then there's another hammock in here that wasn't going to fit in this one. That means he'll have 2 hammocks, which is really cool for him. You don't need you need enough for them to hide, really. That's what they need. They need to be able to do. So you don't have to spend like a bunch of money on stuff, as long on super nice stuff, just as long as they can hide and it's not gonna like hurt them with chemicals, it's fine. I have a water dish holder and food holder against the wall on this side of the tank, and that was $6.99 for that and for the little holder, and then all of these little cups. But I kind of have been washing the cup that I have in there right now, which I'll probably replace it like once a month, but I don't want to go through a bunch of these little plastic guys because that's kind of bad for the environment. So I'll probably just wash it for as long as I can. To get crested gecko diet, I bought the Pangea growth and breeding gecko diet just because he is still like a baby. Like, he's only the length of my finger, but he's gonna get to the size of my hand. I bought the one for growth because it has insects in it and it will help him get bigger. So I just do 2 teaspoons of that with 4 teaspoons of water and mix it up. And that might even be too much, but it coats like the bottom of the dish because it seemed like he was being pretty picky about it when it wasn't coating the bottom of the dish. So I was just like, whatever, I will use the extra little bit of food for you. You can also feed them crickets, but I have not gotten around to that yet, and his head isn't that big, and the cricket has to be like not as wide as their head for them to eat it without choking, I think. I don't know. The person I got the gecko from told me that, so that's what I'm telling you. And I'll probably incorporate the crickets into his diet about once or twice a week once he gets a little bit bigger, or I get more comfortable with the idea of having crickets in my room. Just kind of depends. And that cost $19.99, and you can get ones for, and that's for a ½ pound, so you can get 2-ounce ones for like $11.99, just depending on the flavor. And there's so many fun flavors. I'm like, I want to try them all, not me, but like him. I want him to try them all. But that's the one that I bought just because it seemed plain enough that he would like it regardless. I bought a water conditioner. I got some Reptisafe because it takes out, what does it do? Where's the thing? It removes chlorine and chloramines, ammonia. It adds electrolytes and helps rehydrate. So I put 4 drops of this in here, and then I use this to mist the tank, I use this to make the food, and I use this to put in his water dish. And this was $4.99 for the little bottle. The thing that I bought was a critter keeper. It has my receipts in it right now, but this is what I went to pick him up in. I put foliage and a paper towel roll in here so that he would have somewhere to hide when I was driving him home. This was about $6.99. If you have any tips on traveling with geckos, please tell me, because I have to drive 4 hours home for Thanksgiving and Christmas, and I am terrified to even attempt to put him in the car for that long. So if you have any tips, please let me know. The next thing that I bought was a humidity and temperature gauge, and that is because I wanted to make sure that he is living in the right temperature environment. And the nice thing about geckos is that they can live in room temperature environments. If they get too hot, they will overheat, but if they get too cold, they will be sick, and that finding that balance is very scary for me, because I am like, what if it's reading it wrong? What if he's actually freezing? What if this? What if that? What if, But it was about $14, and I got a 2-in-1, so it has the humidity on one side and temperature on the other. And like I said earlier, they have to be kept at 50% to 80% humidity, so that gauge is really helpful in reading how humid it is in the tank. And then the temperature, I maintain about 65 to 75 degrees, and my apartment is typically about 72. Online, it was like, oh, you want to make sure that they have like a warm spot and a cold spot, or they won't thrive. I'm trying to figure that part out still, so if you have any tips about that, please let me know, because I have this heating pad that I haven't put on the cage yet, and it's for 10-gallon tanks, so I wouldn't put it on the 5.5 anyway. But I have this heating pad that I'm afraid to use because I don't want to cook him. Anyway, this is about $14. I don't know if you actually need this, but I have it. I'm hesitant to use it. It's a reptile heating pad, and that's pretty much what I bought. I have for him, I'll probably buy more foliage in the future, just because the 5-gallon is full, but the 10-gallon I don't think will be with what I have. So yeah, it cost me $209 to get everything that I have and the gecko itself. So that's not the worst ever, and he also doesn't need that much space. So I think there are a lot of pros, and I'm very excited to start my little life journey with my gecko ketchup. Okay, y'all. So I thought I was gonna get my gecko on Saturday. It is Wednesday now. I'm actually getting it tonight at 10 p.m. because I'm impulsive and I actually have all of the stuff to house it. So I thought, why not go get it tonight? But I'm gonna go get it. So yeah, I will see you in the car. You can't see us, but it's happening.
Woo! We're getting a gecko, and by we I mean she is.
We're almost there. We're like 10 minutes away. It's 10 p.m. It's fine.
It's fine.
It is the day after, and we are just getting settled into our home. Isn't that right, bud? So he was deeper in there earlier, but he's just feeling out what's going on. I have another tank for him to move into eventually. This one is 10 gallons, so it'll be what he lives in for the rest of his adult life when he is a little bit bigger than he is now. That's a 5.5 gallon, which I mean isn't ideal necessarily, but I just figured since he used to live with other geckos or he lived with his sibling before I took him home, that it might be easier for him to adjust if he is in a smaller space. So I'm just letting him do his thing, figure out how he wants to live his life, and maybe next week we can get into the bigger cage. Okay, so I'm getting ready to move Ketchup into his new tank. But look at this precious boy sleeping. Yes, there's poop next to him, but that means he's eating. But look how cute he is. Oh my gosh. It's official. He's been here for a whole week. Look at how cute he is. It's gonna get really sad when he's too big for that pumpkin, but yeah. A whole week and he's moved into his 10-gallon tank. I'm gonna turn off the heating pad, but yeah, so this is his home. This is where he lives. I just sprayed him and remade his food, and that's what's going on. Thank you for watching. It has been great to talk to you about my crested gecko. I'm very excited. I cannot believe that I actually bought a pet. I didn't think I would ever do that, like right out of college or before I was married, and I definitely thought that my first pet would be a dog and not a crested gecko. But here I am, doing what I want at age 22. I gotta go, so I will talk to you later. Bye.